Hey everybody, Jenna K here. So I am on a road to self-discovery. So I was a former therapist. I have a degree in psychology. I've got a lot of insight and wisdom. I give great advice. I don't always follow my own. So I've had a lot of things that have happened in my life. And it's a story that's going to take a long time to tell. But in order for me to be able to do that, to gain the strength to be able to do that, to really figure out what I'm going to do from here, I really had to kind of map back and figure out where it all started. So, there are a lot of things that happen to us when we're children that change how we view the world, how we develop, how we deal with things in our adulthood. Not saying that everything that forms us, molds us, gives us trauma happen in childhood. Some of us have wonderful childhoods, and it doesn't explain everything, but it explains some things, and it explains some things for me. And I used to do a lot of training for my staff. I used to do a lot of work with my clients that kind of help them maybe understand why they developed some of the conditions that they did. So at first, when I started to look at these things, I kind of related it to myself, and it was scary. I thought I was doomed for failure. And that really wasn't what the intention was. It just gave the individuals, it gave me an awareness that if I experienced some of these things as a child, that maybe I might develop things in the future. So, you know, I have had to kind of go back over a lot of periods of my life. Why did these things happen to me? Why did they keep happening to me? What was my ownership in it? I, as a child, always tried to be the peacemaker. And that's part of this. And I'll go through some of that as I go along my journey. And I hope you'll maybe share and follow and be a part of it. I figure if I'm going through it, maybe it might relate to somebody out there. So I know that because of what happened to me, I chose to adapt certain traits and behaviors. I learned very quickly early on that I wanted validation. I wanted to fit in. I developed perfectionism traits. I developed certain qualities. I also made myself very vulnerable. And I was a little bit naive. I grew up in a very, very small town. I lived in a little bit of a bubble. I was an only child until I was 15. There's a lot of different things that have molded me and made me kind of be the person that I am. And I'm really trying to work through it. So, I haven't ever taken the time in my life to really figure out who I am. I really didn't know who I was, what I liked. I really didn't ever give myself the choice to learn those things about myself. So it's been quite an adventure. So, what I wanted to talk about today, and I'll try to keep this one short, it's a study. It's about the adverse childhood experiences that sometimes define and change how we develop. The ACEs study measures traumatic events in childhood like abuse, neglect, family dysfunction, and that may present a future problem. So the higher the score, the likelihood that they'll develop problems into adulthood, specific problems. So things that are going to be on the scoring mechanism on the checklist that I'm going to show you, it could be things like parental separation, incidents of domestic violence, substance abuse, mental health, criminal behavior in the household, psychological, physical, and emotional abuse, either directly toward the child or toward somebody in the household. And then also cases of neglect, physical and emotional abuse that directly impact the child. So I'll share my story and the things that apply to me. But like I said, my story is my own, and I'm going to use this as an educational opportunity to hopefully make it relatable to you folks. So, some of the factors that do impact children as they're growing up that maybe will change how they see their future. So, they could be social factors, it can be poverty, income level, it can be whether the parents are unemployed or maybe work too much, it can be not having what they need to survive, their basic necessities met. It can be discrimination, it can be community disruptions, it can be social isolation, for example. It could also be household factors that do play into some of these things that happen to children. It could be domestic violence, it can be substance abuse within the home, it can be mental illness within a parent or a guardian, it can be separation from the family, and it can also be living in the care of somebody that they don't feel safe with. It can also be related to family factors like their parenting skills, their parenting capacity. I think it'll be interesting to see how different teen parenting styles, from 20 years ago to today, really do change the outcomes for the children. I think technology and a lot of different things are going to play into how children develop, but that's going to be a whole different study somewhere down the road. So it can be based on, the parents' age, how prepared, how mature were they when the children were born? What was their capacity to be a good parent? Did they know? Did they have real good role models as parents? And then what is the family structure? Sometimes that in and of itself does play a factor in development. So there can also be intergenerational roles. Was there violence? Was there, you know, parental adverse experiences that played an impact in how they raised their children? And then were there social inequalities? Parents are supposed to love each of their children equally, but sometimes that's just not the case. So, all of these things do determine how children perceive the world and how that they develop. You know, I want to look at this, from a subjective role, from a logical perspective, and then I'll try to give you specific examples and how maybe these things impacted me. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to get up the questionnaire so we can take a look at that together.